Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Mr. Wiz here. If you are new to this channel, we build video games. So right now we're working our way through a Beginners to Unity course, and specifically we've been doing this project. We're making a 2D mobile game. This is what I have so far, where the player can now shoot at objects that are falling from the top of the device. That's what we finished in the last video. So the goal of today's video is we're going to add score to this game so that it gets points as we play. So here we go. I can shoot and I can destroy objects, but we don't have any score yet, so we're going to fix that. Before we get to that part, though, I did notice a small problem with my game. If you look at my ship right now, you can kind of see it. He's starting to fall over. The reason that's happening is because in the last video when we made our laser, we gave the laser colliders, and my ship also has a collider. So what's happening is they are colliding. And since they both have colliders, the laser is essentially pushing my ship. At the end of the last video, I did talk about creating offset, where you can change where the laser spawns from. And we talked about using that to make your game look better. Well, this is also going to be the fix for fixing this. So in the last video, I told you, don't worry about it if it doesn't look good. Well, it turns out you might want to worry about it because even if it looked good, your laser is probably pushing yours like mine is pushing mine. So what I need to do is I need to offset it a little bit more. I did offset it in the last video by 0.5, but as you can tell, that was not enough. It is still pushing my ship over, just a little bit, but it is pushing my ship, and that's messing up my controls. So what I need is I need the laser to appear just a little bit in front of it. I don't want the collider from the laser touching the collider from my ship. That's the big idea, right? So if I look at my ship and I zoom in on it here, my collider, I decided to use the one that fits the image, right? I decided to use the polygon collider. So as long as my laser doesn't touch any of this collider, it should work. So right now I have 0.5. That is not working. Let's go ahead and set it some more, a little higher up. What would 1 look like? Would that be too much? Let's see. 1 looks like it works pretty good, but... oh, I got destroyed. But it does look like there's a bit of a gap there. Do you see that? Yeah, there's a bit of a gap between the front of my ship and the laser. That's more gap than what I really need. I think I want to bring it closer down. So 0.5 was too little for my ship. 0.1 was too much. Let's do somewhere in the middle, like maybe 0.7 or 0.8. I'm going to try 0.8, see what that looks like. It's all about getting it just in front of the ship, so it's not touching the ship. Okay, I think that might be working right there. If I keep hitting this, nothing's bumping out of place. It does look like my laser is appearing just a little bit, so that big gap I had now is a very, very small gap, and I think that looks playable to me. So I'll leave mine at 0.8. Definitely adjust your offset to whatever fits your ship. You don't want the collider of your laser interrupting or touching the collider of your ship, or you will have the same problem that I just had. Okay, so now that my lasers are working well, they're no longer colliding with my ship, I'm ready to start coding the score. This is not really a new idea here. We've done score before in our flying game. If I hop over to the flying game, let's see, let's do a quick refresh on how we did it there. So in my canvas, I created a score text, and you can see it on my screen here. It's the one that says this is where the score will go. So I created that in this game, and there you can see it from the other view. I put it in the corner, I anchored it to the top right corner, and then in my game manager, I assigned the score text. So I created a variable for the score text and assigned it. And then in my game manager script, I did a few things here. In the game manager script, I made a variable for the score text. In the start of the game, I set the score text to be equal to a score. I also made a variable for the score. Yeah, I have that too. So both these variables were important. So I set the score to 0, and I set the score text to say score 0. And then I created a new function, this update points function. And that update points function, whenever it runs, would add 1 to the score and would update the score text. Now this function doesn't run by itself, so the next thing I did is inside of my player controls, because in that game, you got points when the player touched a coin, right? So inside my player controls, where I have my trigger and the collision, when I touch the collectible, it would then run the script called update points, because I had to assign a variable in here for the game manager, and I had to assign the game manager, which I did right here in the on start. So a lot of code, but the good news is we can copy a lot of this because there really isn't much different between this code and what we're going to be doing. We're still doing essentially the same things. So I'm just going to end up copying a lot of the code from this program so I don't have to give myself as much work. Okay, so first things first, let's go to our new program and let's go ahead and create that score text. So in my canvas, let's open it up here. We only have one thing right now. We have the button. I'm going to right click on the canvas. I'm going to create a new UI text mesh pro text, right? So we're going to select that. I'm going to switch it over to scene view so I can see it a little bit better. Use my F key to find it. There it is. So here's the text that I'm creating. And we need to decide, of course, the position, the color, all that jazz. So if this is the image of the phone layout for my score, I'm thinking I probably want it. I could really put it anywhere, but I'm thinking I want to put it in the top right corner. And I definitely want to make it a lot bigger, and I'm probably going to need to change the color as well. Probably change the layout as well. Right now, my text is aligned with the left. It has a left alignment right now, which means it appears on the left side of the box. But since I want it to be in the top right corner, as the number gets bigger, I want it to stay in that top right corner. So I'm going to right align it. Now, if you put your score in the left corner, don't worry about that. Keep it left aligned. But if you're going to put it in the right corner, you should really right align it like what I'm about to do here. Okay, so I've got it there. I can figure out what font I want to use. I used that font for the button. Maybe I want to use that font for the score too. That looks pretty good. Let's try to get it in a nice spot. I can decide how far down to put it. I think I'm going to match the color of my button. I like that gold color. So let's use the eyedropper here. The eyedropper allows you to select a color you already have. There we go. So now my text is the same color as that. And let's just see how that looks for a quick second. So that's how it looks in the simulator. Does it look good on other size devices? The Z Fold, the text gets cut off the screen. For the pad, it's way too close to the middle. Okay, so I forgot to do the important part, the same thing I forgot to do in the last video. I forgot to anchor it. So once I get it in that top right corner where I like it, I do need to remember to anchor it. So right here, it's anchored to the center middle. If I wasn't clear about what anchoring means, anchoring is measuring the distance from a certain point. So right now, it's measuring the X position and the Y position based on the center of the screen. So it's 260 pixels to the right and 1070 pixels up. So it's measuring it based on the center, which is why when I switch my simulator over to the large device, that's the wrong one. This is the large device. It's still 260 pixels to the right and 1070 pixels up. So it's not in the corner, but it's still in the same position compared to the center of the screen. So instead of doing that, I want to anchor it. Let me switch back to the device I was designing it on. There we go. I want to anchor it to the top right, which would be this one right here. Now I want you to notice how those numbers changed. From the top right, it is 280 pixels to the left. So the X position is 280 pixels to the left of the top right corner, and it's 100 pixels down from the top right corner. So since it's measuring from the top right corner, it should be in the same place of the screen no matter what device I choose. It'll always be 280 pixels to the left and 100 pixels down from the top right corner, since that's what I decided to anchor it to. And it looks pretty good on all these different devices. All right, cool. So I like that pretty well. And I'm wondering if I should... No, I don't think I will. I'll just leave that way, and we can change it later. I'm gonna go ahead and name it, though. So let's name this as score. And in the text, I'll go ahead and write score as well. You see how it's coming from the right-hand side? That's what I was talking about when I was talking about right alignment. if it was on the left-hand side, then it would be over there instead of along the edge. I really want it to be along the edge. That way, so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Let's say the score is, if the score is 1, it'll be in the corner. If the score is 10, it'll still be in the corner. If the score is 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000, it'll always still be in the corner of the screen. That's why right alignment works so good when you're trying to line something up with the right corner. Okay. You know what? I can just leave it like that right now. We'll pretend that I have 10 million points. It will change later when I program it to do so. Okay, so I've got a text box that I like. It's in the right part of the screen. It looks good on my simulator. Now we need to go ahead and start coding the stuff that will make it work. So let's go to the game manager and my game manager script. And let's copy some of that code that we used in the flying game so I don't have to retype it all. So let's go back to my flying game. And in the game manager script on the flying game, what do we need to copy? We are probably going to need to use some of these things, right? We had the TM Pro and the UI. Since we're dealing with Text Message Pro and we're dealing with the user interface, we're going to need to copy both of these. So let me go ahead and Control-C, copy those. And in the game manager for my game, I'm going to put those in the using section up here. That way it can pull from those libraries, right? I'm going to be doing a lot of copying and pasting, so I do hope you did this other program with us. If you didn't, then you'll just have to type up the things that I'm copying, right? All right, so then down here, we did have to create some variables. So we created a variable for the score, and we also created a variable for the score text. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy both of those. Control-C to copy those. And these are variables which go up here with my other variables. So I'm going to hit Enter and paste them there. So we have one for the score. We have one for the score text. Let's go back to it. The other stuff that we're going to be doing, we do have to set the original score and what we want to say. Now, we might not do it exactly like this. We can change a little bit of this. But let's go ahead and just copy it anyways. So I'm copying those two lines that are in my void start. And on mine, we will put those in the void start as well. Now, that'll set the score to 0, and it'll set the score text to... Now, here's where before in the flying game, I had mine where it actually said... Here, let me just go into play mode and you can see it. In the flying game, I had mine set to where it actually said score and then had a number behind it. Right? So it says score 0. And then if I got points, it would say score 1, score 2, score 3. For this mobile game, we don't have as much room on the screen, so I don't think it's as important to actually say score. I think we can probably get by with just a number. So in my script, I'm going to get rid of this part that says score, and I'm just going to have it put the number there. That'll simplify the way it looks a little bit, and it won't take up as much room on the screen. Okay, so the score starts off at 0. And the score text is just going to say 0. So when the game starts, it should have that because it isn't updating yet. Let's go back to the flying game and see if there's anything else in the game manager that we need to copy. Okay, yeah, here's our function that creates the new score, right? So we're going to end up copying a lot of this. I'm probably not going to use this part because this is the part that ended the game. So I won't use this, but I will use the rest of it. Just to make it easy, I'm going to copy the whole function. Remember, the brackets are part of the function, right? So I'm going to go ahead and copy the whole function, but then I'll delete the parts I don't need. So then in here, after my other functions, the last one we used was the spawn obstacles. I'll just create a couple more lines here. Make sure you're doing it before this last bracket, because that's important. I'm going to paste the part I just copied. And then, like I said, I'm not planning on doing a winning screen right now. Maybe we'll do something later, but I'm not ready to do that right now. So I'm going to get rid of this if score equals points to win. That whole logic, we're not going to be using that currently. All right, and once again, I am going to get rid of the score part that says score, so I just want it saying the number. There we go. So when the points update, the score will add 1 to it, and then the text will update with the new score. Okay, is there anything else in the game manager script that I need to copy? I don't think so. The restart game we're not worried about. So that's all the stuff in the game manager script that had to do with the points. So let me go ahead and save this. Control-S to save. Go back into my 2D game. it's nice to be able to switch back and forth between games. It's really helpful sometimes. All right, so my game manager has all the stuff on it. I did get an error message. What's it saying? Cannot implicitly convert integer to string, GameManager.cs, and it has line 25 and line 45. So what am I doing wrong on line 25 and 45? Okay, so both of these have to do with the text. All right, did I forget to create the score text variable? No, it's right there. So score is an integer, but score text is typing, it's words. So it's having a hard time converting my number to text, is what the error message is saying. I wonder if there's an extra step that I need to do that I forgot about. Okay, so I've looked up some things, and Unity is kind of interesting, or C# in Unity is kind of interesting. It can't translate a number that's by itself into text, but it can when you have text in front of it. So when we had the score thing, it worked fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put an empty space here and then do plus score. I know that seems weird, but basically I'm placing an empty space before the number, and that lets Unity know that the score is part of that text. It creates a text that it can attach the score to, if that makes sense. It's kind of a silly extra step, but from what I saw, this should work. So I'm going to go ahead and put a space there on both of these, add the plus sign. There we go. So the version that we had before said score and had the plus sign, but I'm not going to put the text there. I'm just going to put an empty space there instead. And let's save that. Control S and go back to my 2D game and see if that's working better. Yep, the errors went away. So adding that little space before it seems to have worked. So if I hit play now, is it going to do anything? Actually, hold up. Shouldn't hit play now. I have to assign the score text. So in my game manager, score text currently says none. I have to put that score text object that we made. So I'm going to drag that into where it says none. There we go. So when I hit play now, this number that currently says 10 million should change to just say 0, because that's how we set it up in our game manager script. Let's see if it works. Yep, it now says 0, and if I switch to the simulator, it says 0 there. So we have a text box for the score. Now we need to work on making it update when I shoot something. So we want the score to change when a collision happens between the laser and one of the falling objects. So if we go back to our scripts here, the laser control is where we put the collision event here. So this is when we want it to increase the scores, right here, when they collide, right? So once again, taking a look at our old program to help us out. For our old program, it was in the player controls, but we did it right here. So when the player collided with one of the collectibles, it ran the function called update points. So we had to put this in our code, and then we also had to add the game manager variable here. And I'm trying to remember if we needed to put any of this stuff in there or not. I'm not sure. I don't think we did. I think we just needed these parts. So let's start copying things and see if it works. Okay, so, we did need to put this in there. I forgot about that. We did need to put that in there. Well, not the audio source part, just the game manager part. So once again, I'm about to start copying and pasting things, right? So this is coming from the player control script from my flying game. All right. So I need to copy this game manager part right here. Let's go ahead, Control C to copy that. And that was a variable. I'm not putting it in my game mechanics. I'm putting it in my laser controls. All right. So in here, we're going to hit enter. We're going to create the new game manager variable. Then I'm going to go back to my player controls for my flying game. And we're going to copy this whole piece right here. This is the part that finds the game manager in the game and assigns it. So this will only work if you named the game manager object the same way that I did, and you named the script the same way that I did, right? So if you've been following along, this part should work in our new program. So this was in the onStart that we paste this part. So it's going to find my game manager object, the object called game manager. It's going to get the component that it has called game manager, and it's going to save that as the new variable called game manager. I know that's confusing. It's a lot. It's a lot, but we'll get through it. All right. So then if I go back to, wrong one. If I go back here, after it did all of that, then it runs the function called update points from within the game manager. So I'm going to copy that line. I'm going to go to my laser controls, and I'm going to paste that line right here where it destroys the laser and the falling object. So I'm going to paste that right there. So let's see if we have this correct. I've got the variable called game manager, which is going to find the game manager and assign it to itself. And then when I collide with something, it's going to run the update points function, which, if we coded that correctly, should add a point to our score. All right, let's save this and test it out. Any error messages you're going to give me first? No errors. That's a good sign. Let's go ahead and play. Hey, look at that. I have points. I have a working score system. Woohoo! All right, that's pretty cool. And I know most of what we did in today's video is just copy and paste, but honestly, there's nothing wrong with doing that. As a programmer, if you have a code that works, there's no reason to rewrite it. You can just go find it. You can import it or you can copy it, right? So yeah, we've got a working point system. I was thinking about adding lives for the player as well. How do you feel about that? Should we add a life system for the player? I think I'm going to do that. If you don't want to do that in your game, that's up to you. But I think I'm going to go ahead and add lives in my game. I'm going to duplicate the score variable because it's going to be very similar. So I'm going to do Control-D to duplicate the score variable. And I'm going to move it down just a little bit because I'm going to put the lives underneath the score. I'm going to put the lives right there. And let's change the color of the text. I want the lives to be red, like a bright red or orangish red, something like that. There we go. And I'll put it right here, player lives. All right. And I'm still going to anchor it to the top right like I did that one. So basically the way I want my game to work is the score will be on top and then their lives will be underneath of it. And I'm going to do very similar to the way we just did the score. So I'll still be doing a lot of the same stuff. So in the game manager, we're going to create a variable now for the lives. So I'm just going to basically do the same thing I did with the score text. Copy, enter, paste. And this one will be life text. Okay. And then we're going to create in here, in the start, we'll set that up to what we want it to be. I should create a variable for the lives, just like I did with the score, right? So let's create a variable for lives as well. I'm going to make this one public so I can actually set it in Unity. So we'll do an integer. We'll call it, I'm going to call it player lives, lowercase p for player, capital L for lives. So we're writing it in camel case. All right. So we're setting up the integer called player lives, and we're creating and the text for the lives. All right. So in here, we're going to do the same thing we did with the score, basically. But this time, instead of doing it for score text, I'm going to do it for life text. And, life should really be lowercase. When we create variables, we always like to lowercase the first word. So let me lowercase that. It tends to work better. Okay. So life text, dot text, and I am going to put some text in this one. So I'm going to put lives, colon, space, and then I'll put the variable that I made, player lives, right there. So copy that, put that in here. Boom. So when the game starts, it will change the lives to equal whatever value I decided to give the player, right? So maybe I start with 3, maybe I start with 5. I'll decide that when I start playing my game. Okay, so it creates the variable, and it changes the text at the top to show how many lives they have left. And then down here, we're going to create a new function. So just like we did with the update points, in fact, I can just copy this and make some changes to it. Copy down here, we'll make a new version. Instead of update points, I will say update health is what I'll call it. Update health. And then when we update the health, the variable player lives, copy, will not add 1, it will decrease by 1. And then, instead of score text, it would be life text, right? Actually, I can just copy the whole line. The life text will match or will update with the new number of lives. Boom. All right. So when I update the health function, they should lose 1 health, and then the text should update. And I think I did everything good there. We added the variable, we added the text thing. All right, let's save this. Control S. I'm going to go back into my program. I'm going to hop over to the game manager. And where it says life text none, I'm going to put, oh, I should change the name because it still says score. I'm going to change this one to lives. And we're going to assign that in the game manager. Right there. Okay, so I have a section for the player's lives. I do need to set up how many lives I want them to start with. I'll start with 3 for now. If I hit play, that section should change to the number 3. Yep, it says lives 3. Let's see what that looks like in game. That doesn't look bad. I kind of like that. All right, so now I need it to update. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the player now so that the player controller, right now he's designed so when he collides with something, both him and the asteroid get destroyed. I'm going to change that so it only destroys the asteroid, but the player loses a life. All right, so let's go ahead and change the player controller. Down here, when he collides with something, remember there's game object and there's other game object. Other game object is what he is colliding with. So in this case, it would be my falling objects or my asteroids. So we still want it to destroy the other game object, but I don't want it to destroy the player anymore. Instead, I want it to run that function that we just created. So the same way in our laser controls we had it run the function, we're going to do the same thing here. So in laser controls, we had to add a couple different things. We had to add this game manager thing and this line. So we're going to do the same stuff in my player controls. I'm going to copy that. In my player controls, I will add it with the other variables. I'm going to copy this whole line that's in my on start. And I'm going to put that in the player controls on start. And then in the laser controls, we added this part to run it. We're going to do the same thing in player controls, except we're not running the function update points. We're running the function called update health. And I do need to make sure that I spell it the same way here that I spelled it in my game manager. Update health. Yep, looks the same. All right, so when I collide with something, I should lose 1 life, and it should destroy the object. Let's save that and test it. All right, so right now I should start with lives 3, and then if I hit something, it should become 2, and then 1, and then 0. And let's see what happens. So here's my score of 3. I'm going to let myself get hit with something. Now it says lives 2. Now it says lives 1. Now it says lives 0. And now it says -1 because it's still going, right? So eventually I do need the game to end when I run out of health. So let's go ahead and write that part of it now. So where would that go? Would that go in the player controls or would that go in the game manager? I'm thinking that would go in the game manager, because that is where we have the function. So after it loses a health and it updates the text, I need to create an if block in here. So if, and I put my parentheses because that's where my condition is going to go in a minute, and I put my curly brackets because that's where I'm going to put my action. So in here is where I need it to destroy the player. So I need to, in my game manager, I do need to assign the player object. I haven't done that yet. This is taking a lot more steps than I originally thought it would. Let's see, public game object, and this will be the player. I should lowercase player. Okay. And I could, actually, let's just call it player object. I like that. So we'll have a variable for the player object. And then down here, when we'll have to write in our condition still. But once the condition becomes true, it is going to destroy, parentheses, and then my player object. Semicolon at the end. I think that should work. Yeah, that should work. All right. So then inside the condition, what is the condition that needs to be true in order for it to destroy the player? I need the player lives to be basically equal to 0 or less than or equal to 0. But let's just put equal. All right. So if player lives equals 0. All right, let's save this and test it, because I haven't tested this yet, and let's see what happens. I did get an error message. Cannot convert integer to Boolean. Oh, right. You don't use equals when you're doing comparisons in C#. I've mentioned this in a previous video, but this is something I forget a lot for myself. When we're comparing and we're trying to say equals, we actually need to put a double equal. So equal, equal. I know that's kind of weird, but that's to show the difference between that and these other equals that we have being used in other places. So this is saying we're comparing to see if it's equal. All right, so now I'm going to save that. So if the player's lives is double equal sign 0. Let's see if this works now. That error should go away. Let's see if there's any others. All right, no errors. Let's test it. So when I hit an object, I should lose a life, and once the number of lives I have goes to 0, the ship should be destroyed, and it didn't get destroyed. Oh, I forgot to assign it. Ha ha! Silly me. Go to the game manager. Player object says none. I need to put my player in there. I always forget the silly steps, the simple steps, right? Let's try this again. So I'm going to let myself get hit by some things. I only have 1 life left. Let's see. And it got destroyed. It works. So now I have a working score and working lives. Cool, cool, cool. This is a great place to end the video. It did end up being a little bit longer than I thought it would. I hope you learned something new today. If you did, click that like button. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.